Internet. If you've ever been to Friday Game when I've been there, you know that I am Todd Harper, and I am a researcher here at MIT. So I have been asked to talk a little bit about arcades and the public performance. I'm starting to look at the screen. This is what I'm just going to like, is that cool? I want to position myself first before I start this research. I'm not an arcade historian. I actually know some awesome academic arcade historians, which if you're interested, I can point. This is weird because you're here and that's there. And I think I'm gonna have to look at you guys because talking to the camera is just bizarre. So,
sorry, internet. We're awesome.
So I can introduce you to some academic arcade historians if you want. I'm not the guy. So I'm kind of coming from a place of somebody who has a certain degree of expertise, but this is also just kind of an enthusiast effort for me. So, yeah. So arcades and arcade games, which are not technically the same, right? Arcade is a space, arcade games are things that go in that space. But generally speaking, arcades can be a lot of different things, but they're usually where games are played in public, and the play is kind of temporary or ephemeral, right? Like it's not, people don't go in there to play a Final Fantasy, right? It's just like, I'm gonna clock 40 hours in this RPG in my local arcade. No, that's not gonna happen. Usually come in and play, people play like 20 minutes, half an hour or something, and they're like, okay, cool, that was fine, and then they turn and leave. People jump from game to game, right? So it's kind of a different character than people playing at home consoles. And I kind of wanted to go over in this talk a few examples of arcade elements, both of the space and of the games, that are resonant with and play to performance elements. So I wanted to give you some history and context on the space, some arcade-specific note bunny quotes, thanks Tubes, of game types and interactions, and then three kind of ways in which players perform in the arcades: the virtuoso public performance, playing together socially, and kind of a combination of both, which is competitive play. So an arcade is a physical space. You guys have been to an arcade, right? Show of hands. For 5 people, great, yeah, thanks. So, like my memories of arcades in upstate New York when I was growing up was we had this little mall, and next to the movie theater on the upper floor of the mall, there was a very long, very narrow space that was really dark all the time and had some skee-ball and some games, and that's my memory of the arcade, right? Does anybody have like a different memory?
Was it Cascades?
No.
Because that was an upstate New York arcade. That was exactly what you described.
No, like I think growing up, because all right, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, right? So that was the space. I don't remember any arcades from like before I became a high schooler that were not dark, dingy, narrow, crowded, noisy. So yeah, they're crowded, they're dimly lit, they're noisy. They have things called attract modes. We'll go over that in a minute. And there's lots of different game types, right? Even, I'm trying to think back in the day, you know, you'd have the racing games, which you could tell because they had the wheel controller. Then you had plenty of like action games. I remember Commando, and Smash TV, which you've never seen Smash TV. Good times, you control one movement, one stick controls your movement, one stick controls your bullets, and it's a game show and you can kill people on it, which is pretty fun, actually. As play spaces, they were largely male-dominated because digital games are culturally coded as a male activity, right? So easier for men to be in that space, which is not to say that there were no women in that space. There obviously were, but they tended to be male-dominated spaces. They have this notion of being meritocratic, right? If you went to an arcade, all that mattered was if you were able to play or not. For reasons I can elaborate at a later date, that meritocracy doesn't always play out for various structural reasons, but generally speaking, it tended to be, hey, if you can play, you can be there. They were a youth activity, obviously, because like being male-coded, games are also a youth-coded activity. They were a thing for kids. Games are still kind of suffering from that for kids label. So if you want to think about it, dark, dingy space, full of guys, young guys, who want to be good at stuff. So they're also really tied to commercial spaces. Arcades happen in mall food courts a lot. The one that I just described earlier was in a mall next to a movie theater. But these are all places where I have seen, if not just an arcade, like an actual arcade room space than an arcade game, like an upright cabinet. So hit a mall food court inside a movie theater or outside or near it. In convenience stores, I know when I was doing fighting games research, a lot of people talked about going to a local convenience store to play Street Fighter 2 when it first came out. Pizza parlors, I don't even call them that anymore. We had one though where I was growing up. It was adorable. It was like in a little corner, and they had like 2 or 3 tables because most people took their pizza away. But then they also had like this rotating series of games that I have very fond memories of, like this Pac-Man and Spy Hunter, and Bump and Jump. Oh my God, you guys, Bump and Jump was so great. So okay, I have to stop and describe that game. You played a dune buggy, right? And you just drove, and occasionally there would be these ramps, and you would go up the ramp, and so you jumped really high, which the game simulated by gradually increasing the size of your sprite and then shrinking it back down again. That's how shit went down before that Mode 7 chip on the Super Nintendo. So, that was pretty great. Bars, which I'll show you an example of in a sec, skating rinks, roller and ice, bowling alleys, and stuff like that, right? Like, they were in places where people were doing other commercial stuff, and then the games happened to be there, or the games were all in an arcade, which was positioned adjacent to some sort of commercial space, a mall, a movie theater, whatever.
I just remember theme parks, and then my friends would be sad because I'd want to go in, and it'd be like, roller coaster is right in front of you.
No, but there's all this Virtua Fighter. That happened to me on a school trip. They're like, we're gonna go to this like awesome roller coaster park because you're gonna learn a lot because school. And I'm like, no, but there's all this Virtua Fighter to play. In those spaces, arcade games are kind of wander by, right? It's just like you walk by and people go, oh hey, I've never seen that game before, or that game is brightly colored, or that game is making cool noises. I'm gonna try that out. Because it's all about coin drop, right? If you've never actually seen an arcade cabinet, they're upright, they're a little taller than an average person. It's usually a monitor of some kind, a board up above it that has some sort of colorful graphic that tells you what it is, and then a way to control it that kind of looks like that, which I guess you can see later. But, and then you put in coins, and it used to, I remember, I was alive in the days when one play of an arcade game was a quarter. Those days are gone, for the record. Now it's like minimum 50 cents, some are like upwards of $1. It's just nuts. All right, so, okay, now I want to come back to attract mode. So it sounds sexy, right? I'm going to attract you. But attract mode, it's exactly what it is. It's supposed to, you're walking by the machine and the machine's like, hey, you want to play me?
I have to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's just like, no, that's cool, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles upright arcade roller cabinet. You're brightly colored and you're making gentle sounds, and I kind of want to touch you. But attract mode could be really, oh my god, I can't even see my mouse. So I wanted to play a couple of track modes for you. This one's from the Simpsons arcade game, and it's kind of great.
Plug in the audio.
Oh, no, I haven't. Ah! Technology fail. They're not gonna hear.
Yeah,
Are they?
Just hear it through the mic.
Wow. I'm a DJ. I'm a DJ. All right, let's start this over. Did any of you actually play this game, by the way?
Yeah, totally.
If you haven't, internet, it's on PSN and Xbox Live for like a pitifully small amount of money. And it's super fun, actually. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Load it up, YouTube.
Yeah, but let's skip ahead, but wait the same amount of time for it to load anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, go ahead and just wait in this 3 minutes, I guess. That. I'm so glad that we can say bar instead.
That's not kid friendly.
No, it's not. I also love that all of the, like, if nobody has actually high scored, I'm certain that was someone playing a MAME ROM emulation and not the actual arcade game, obviously. But I love that all of the insert names are always like references to the game. And you can tell that a human being has played the game because the number 1 score is ass. Which we'll also get to in a little bit. Okay, so, but that was many examples. But like, you kind of got the shtick, right? Like, here's the intro, and it's kind of like the intro of the Simpsons TV show, and then that lasts a little bit, and then they show the game playing itself, right? So that you can, but with the big game over screen, so that you know these are human beings, you guys. It's just a computer. So, you know, you kind of watch how the game would be played for a bit, and then usually there's a display of the high scores, and then it loops around. But then, okay, so SNK, the people who made King of Fighters and all sorts of other good games, those guys were masters of the attract mode. Masters. And somebody, I asked on Twitter last night, I'm like, does anybody have a favorite attract mode? And somebody said, yeah, Windjammers. And I'm like, is that sailing? What is that game about? And then I saw this video, which, oh my god, is so good. Flying disc game, Windjammers. Oh, wait until you see actual gameplay of this game. It's good times. This is Frisbee Street Fighter.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, and occasionally bowling. Honestly, I could watch this all day, which is probably why I'm going to stop. But, yeah. It's Frisbee combat.
That looks more fun than actual frisbee.
I know. If only I had the ability to imbue a Frisbee with fire and then throw it.
Hey.
Hey. So I was just going, I can do it. I know how. You use cotton. It's fine. You can make a fire. So, but did you notice the insert coin in the middle? That, like, other than game over, that was the common flashing text, right? Because the game wanted you to know, no, you can give me money. It's cool, bro. Just quarters. Give me quarters. So those are two kind of like typical attract modes, but then there's Dragon Slayer, which, if you've never heard of it before, was a very old game which was on Laserdiscs, and it was all like Don Bluth style animation, and you basically controlled it by pushing a glowing button at the right time while the cartoon played. And again, I asked on Twitter, I'm like, favorite attract modes? And somebody's like, oh my god, Dragon Slayer. So I hunted this down today and verified its authenticity, because this is from a remake. But this is the actual attract mode.
Dragon's Lair, a fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a dark wizard who has exploited the treacherous monsters and obstacles. In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey continues against the awesome forces that oppose your efforts to reach the Dragon's Lair. gone, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
Now imagine being in a huge, crowded room of games, and you're like, I really want to play this Frisbee combat game. And then right next to you, this thing's going, no! Dragons, guy! Right here! Yeah, so track mode intended to get your attention. Sometimes it did it by saying, hey, this game would be cool to play. Sometimes it did it by saying, hey! Dragons! Another example of arcade commercial spaces, anybody ever seen an arcade cabinet like this? These were in bars, and do you know why they have glass tops? So that you can put your drink on top of the game. They wanted to make sure that you could play Ms. Pac-Man, or I guess Galaga. It's like a two-sided, that's kind of cool. But like that curved monitor and stuff, no, there's a glass table on top of that. It's because people who run bars and restaurants are like, but we don't want people to stop drinking. So some enterprising bastard was like, no, all we have to do is put a glass table on top. Ship it! Yeah, so if you've never seen one of these things in a bar, they're amazing. They're also terrible. They're usually like the most damaged
There's one in
arcade
the media,
spaces. Is there one? Yeah.
Is it covered in beer?
The 5th floor. It is not covered in beer. It might be coffee stains on it.
Yeah, but no, just people just like, no, Miss Pac-Man, slamming their beer stein down on top of it. So, yeah. Arcades are also kind of stigmatized spaces. The connections to masculinity in urban areas, youth culture, usually arcades are stigmatized as places that breed crime and bad behavior, and it's resonant with really similar treatment of other mass popular culture spaces in the US. One of the things I remember enjoy reading the most when I was a grad student was Mia Gonzalo had me read a piece, and which I want to say, and I couldn't find the actual PDF, which bums me out so hard because some of the language in it was really amazing. But it was this New York City nun who was like, these, and apparently New York City nuns are Edie McClurg in my head, so please just deal with it. But like, these Nickelodeons with them moving images, those boys are going and they're not going to school and they're doing crime and stuff, right? Like just, this nun literally thought that Nickelodeons, hand-cranked motion pictures that took a nickel, that's Nickelodeon, right? Were going to end society as we know it. That they were going to be like, well, nobody's going to school, everybody's doing crime, it's like Newsies 24/7 up in there, I don't even know, but that was the plan, right? It was such a moral panic, ridiculous thing to read. It was so awesome. Okay, if any former students are watching this, yes, this is from Wikipedia. Yes, you're still not allowed to cite Wikipedia in my classes. Do as I say, not as I do. But this is from the Wikipedia article on Nickelodeons, actually, and I thought this wording was really interesting, given the physical description of the arcade game before. For most people, the image of cramped, dingy Nickelodeons in Manhattan's Lower East Side ghetto stands as a symbol for cinema's emergence in America, right? Like, the place where, when the moving picture as mass entertainment was kind of developing in American urban spaces back in the early 1900s, right? Same deal, you know? So I don't think arcades are necessarily at fault. And were they breeding grounds for criminals sometimes? I don't know. I had a friend who told me she went to arcades in Boston and once saw somebody just casually carjacking while she was playing a game. So, that's a thing that happens. I will say arcades, this is going to sound like a spurious connection. I'm going to start that over. Arcades were primarily an urban phenomenon, right? I think most of the time when they occurred in rural spaces, they were places like huts, right? Like mini golf, your local bowling alley, right? Like I grew up kind of in the middle of nowhere, and that's where arcade games were when I grew up. Yeah. So I think kind of the stigmatization of popular urban entertainment featuring young men really was tied to, kind of upper class white fears about what people are doing in urban spaces, which is really unfortunate because those were also places where those people could kind of not have to deal with the upper class white guys bullshit. So, useful spaces, stigmatized spaces.
Is there, I'm wondering because you were talking, you're making a direct connection from Nickelodeons, which is a sort of coin-operated film thing, to digital arcades that we remember from the 80s, and is the coin-operated entertainment part of it also like an aspect because there's an economic thing involved with that?
I think the cheap entertainment part,
Okay.
yeah. I don't necessarily know the coin-op part, but when those things were popular, a nickel was not a ton of money, and a quarter, like when I was a kid, was not a ton of money, right? Depending. But I do think cheap entertainment was probably part of why it was also stigmatized by upper class, rich white people. But I don't necessarily think the coin drop aspect was particularly, because early cinema had the same problem, right? Where you paid a fee to go in and watch, but you didn't, constantly putting in coins. I don't.
So this even these Nickelodeons they're not like these mechanized automated machines. You're actually paying a real person.
No. Nickelodeons were hand cranked. You put in a nickel and then you moved it like a kinescope.
That's
right?
what I thought. Yeah.
But there were also like actual cinema theaters where somebody did the winding and stuff for you, and those were like a normal time.
Possibly an overly cynical line of inquiry, but did most of the criticisms of these sorts of spaces tend to originate from churches?
I don't have enough historical background to say definitively.
I see.
A lot of them did, but that's because in the 1900s, churches were the holders of moral authority in the United States.
I was thinking because they, prior to that, they would have the monopoly on congregation space, and now that you have.
Yeah, no, that's a. Now I wish it was the Nickelodeon. That's a good question. Somebody with a better background in American history could probably answer that better for you. I don't definitively know. But a lot of the critiques did come from religious organizations because they were looked to as the holders of public moral authority, right? Especially in big cities, because congregations were kind of the primary social capital. How people interacted with strangers, right? Especially because you would just kind of blow by them in the street, but you'd see a person you don't know at church on Sunday and be, "Hey, girl," although you probably didn't say it exactly that way. Although, oh God, best result of time travel ever. You go back to Catholic services in Manhattan, 1910, and you walk in and some altar boy's like, "Hi, girl!" Please make that happen, science. All right, so, how did arcades, all right, so I have the somewhat controversial opinion, depending on people who really are embracing the arcade space. I think the arcade is dying out in the United States. I think lots of other people think the arcade is dying out in the United States. Is it dead? No. And I think there's actually a concerted effort to kind of bring it back, especially by people in cultures that really value and pull something from the arcade. But there is a definite decline of the arcade as a space in the US. Why? Blame consoles. All the PC gamers at home are like, yeah! Consoles are terrible, they're the devil, they ruined arcades. And I'm just like, Steam, bros. So, Steam, which is like 50% console game ports now, so whatever. But the development and tech curve of console games, as console games got better and better and better, they were more and more faithful to the arcades, and you didn't have to go anywhere and deal with strangers, and you could just play them at home, whatever, for, and this is the important part, an upfront investment of money that did not involve the repeated insertion of quarters into a machine that said, "Now give me money." So, there are some other contributors, obviously. When people started to move away from urban spaces where arcades were more popular and towards suburban spaces where arcades didn't really have a place to grow, because again, they really tied to commercial spaces, which if you didn't have a mall, you had that one arcade machine in your pizza parlor or convenience store or whatever. And there was this 80s focus on family values, and remember that stigmatization of the arcade. No, me too, lady, me too. But Dimitri Williams wrote on this, and it was pretty interesting. I didn't know about it until I read his dissertation from back in the day, 2004. But where's I going with this? Yeah, kind of like the Reagan era, family is really important, and spending time with your kids, because 1950s sitcoms were awesome, right? Like trying to go back to that Leave It to Beaver scenario that is not even remotely realistic anymore. If you view the arcade as, I'm very sorry, hive of scum and villainy.
Wretched Hive.
Wretched Hive, wretched, sorry, I screwed up wretched and villainous. Sorry, internet, the letters we're gonna get, oh God. Yeah, but if you see the arcade as festering evil, you're not gonna send your kids there. And I should point out, for those of us who grew up in the 80s, a very popular thing for your parents to do if they needed to shop in the mall or the convenience store or whatever was to give you a $1 to $5 bill, set you in front of an arcade, and go, "See you in an hour," and then they would just bail, right? The idea that people could do that nowadays would be like infinite Amber Alerts. That's not, you cannot get away with that anymore.
It kind of figures because I know that my time in the arcades was time that I wasn't being a hooligan. And like
I know,
having
it's
that
so
place
awkward,
to go and
right?
something to do like kept me from being kind of more of a grimy punk than I already was.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you're busy being the Blue Valkyrie, then you don't have time to like spray paint shit on stuff and whatever. Well, not like, you have less time. You might find time to do it on your own. This metaphor ran away from me.
Exactly.
Anyhow, so, and the home market, if the bigger the home market got, then the arcades weren't the only place to get a quality play experience anymore, right? For a long time, I mean, even though home consoles are pretty old, like going back to the 70s, for a long time, arcades were your only option if you wanted to play video games. That was it, right? Please don't even, nobody here is going, I had a home Space War thing in 1965. They didn't. Yeah, like if you grew up in the era when I did, you had Atari and Commodore and Intellivision, or PC, and PC games were just not what you were getting from the arcades back in the day. PC games were really different in like the 70s, like they were Infocom stuff. And like, hey, you know what's awesome? Full motion video on 19 3.5-inch floppies, right? So yeah, that was not a comfortable experience, huh?
5 1/4.
Yeah. Oh man. The thing, I remember when the save icon in word processors wasn't a 3.5-inch floppy, it was a 5.25-inch floppy. Alright, so the quality of home ports back then was just not as good, and so the arcades were still a powerful draw, right? But by the PlayStation era, like the mid-90s, home games literally were the arcade games. They were just the ROM put on a CD and given a front end and put in your machine, right? But to give an example, because this is one of my favorite games ever, this is the arcade version of Dig Dug. Oh no, it's amazing. What sound? Oh, it's just quiet. This guy has a name. I found that out when like he appeared in Namco Cross Capcom. His name was like Hori Taizo.
What, Doug?
Yeah,
Or
Dig Dug
Dave.
guy.
Mr. Germer's father.
Yeah, and he has a wife
Yeah.
who was in a shooter game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Whatever, right? But this is arcade Dig Dug. So drink this quality experience in, like really just loving these 3D mansion graphics, right? But in like 1984, this was amazeballs. Like, sorry, he pulls this awesome trick here, and I
Just
just,
doing the rock thing.
it's so good.
That's how you get all the points.
Suck it, pukas, which is what those things are called, by the way.
Okay.
Right, pukas. Yeah, so that was arcade Dig Dug. And then here's what I owned, the Atari 2600 version of Dig Dug.
What?
We should plug Nick's stuff tomorrow.
Ah.
Oh no, I'm totally touching on like everything else that everyone is saying for the rest of the week.
Are those supposed to be rocks?
That or Nilla wafers, I don't know.
Well, they have like the first 8 bars of the song.
Which only plays while you're moving.
Your music sounds sadder.
Yeah.
I know. It's just like this is the emo version of Dig Dug,
It knows
right?
what it is.
And true story, there was a Chuck E. Cheese in near where I lived that had the arcade Dig Dug, and I wanted to play it. And I told my mom, "Can we go to Chuck E. Cheese so I can play Dig Dug?" And she's just like, "Why? Don't you have that game at home?" And I'm like, "No, but look at it, Mom." Seriously, you just saw them back to back. Which one of those two are you gonna play?
Yeah.
This nonsense or what that you saw before, right? It's just like, are those supposed to be rocks? I don't know what's going on. So, you know, as Nick went before, we'll talk more about tomorrow, console parts, weird business. As that technology improved, obviously, like, PlayStation era, they really literally were just taking the ROMs from games and putting them on a disc, and they gave it like a menu, right? And that was it. So the closer the home experience got to the arcade, the less people needed the arcade. So a lot of arcades converted to what Dimitri Williams calls family fun centers, The idea is to move away from digital games, which are evil, and towards skee-ball, which is godly. I don't know. I guess. Right? Like, it's like, here's some skee-ball and some crane machines, and I guess this thing gives you stuffed animals if you put in a quarter, and I don't know. Right? And there were just less digital games, which were kind of seen as a problematic, male-oriented thing that they didn't, it's that whole den of iniquity nonsense. And there's a really famous arcade in New York called Chinatown Fair, especially popular among our fighting game fans, right? It was one of the best places to go to get public competition in fighting games, which is a thing we'll talk about later. But it closed for renovations in either 2011 2012, and then it reopened to a family fun style environment. I think my favorite quote about that is somebody, an old school gamer fan, went into the new Chinatown Fair and then came out and said, "It's a trap," and then left. Part of me was like, "Oh my god, that's the best thing ever." I was like setting it down going, "I know that's a meme, but come on, that's so good." Right? So here's a picture of the old Chinatown Fair. Right? Dark, crowded, narrow. This is how I remember arcades, right? Everything's really densely packed. It's very dim because apparently we fear light. But yeah, kind of the old Chinatown Fair. And then there's this.
This
Right.
is actually what Chinatown Fair looks like now?
This is the inside of the Chinatown Fair trap, apparently. Yeah.
It's got PBR now.
Hmm?
It's got PBR now.
Yeah. I mean, they've got the basketball thing, right, and skee ball and all that good stuff. But those are two qualitatively different spaces, right? Like they provide a very different experience between the two. And a lot of people who were fans of the old arcade would see this stuff and go like, "Oh man, really?" Yeah. So I want to talk a bit about some games that are often only found in arcade spaces. So a thing that arcades still have are games that don't really work in a home space. And really mimetic controls like Kinect and Wiimote, right? Like moving with our body, kind of mimicking real life movements. Arcades were doing that shit in the 80s, right? Like they were way ahead of the curve. And does anybody remember any shooting game with a controller? Operation Wolf is the one that jumps to mind, right? It was just a Uzi. She pointed at the screen and pulled the trigger.
That sword game too that had the worst hit detection in the world.
Yes!
Swung around the katana and didn't hit anything else.
Yeah.
It was great.
All you wanted to do was hit the clerk instead. Give me my 50 cents back! Does anybody remember Revolution X? The Aerosmith
Yeah, I played that.
gun shooting
Movie
game?
theater.
Music is the weapon. You fired CDs from your Uzi.
No.
So good, right? And this is arcade culture right here, where people are going like, "Oh my god, this game was terrible, and it was the best." Yeah. So racing games like cars, right? Pole Position was a very old Atari racing game, but it was notable because you stepped up to it and it was like, "Bro, there's a wheel." And you didn't control it with a stick. And a pedal, yeah, right? So you controlled the gas with your foot. That was the original mimetic stuff, right? And plus, big installation games are kind of hard to do even with Wii or Kinect style. For example, this is a game, we're going to watch not all of this video, but this is a game called Hang On, which is a very, very old Sega game.
Okay, we're taking a look at our classic here. This is Sega's Hang On, the game is called. As you can see, the bike is somewhat, well, the bike itself is in too rough shape. Oh, I thought there was a crack in the screen. Looks like one of the brake lines. I probably won't be able to brake. I think that's supposed to be the brake line.
If you can't hear it, he's talking about the brake line to the fake motorcycle has been cut so that you can't stop.
Let's see what happens.
Oh, this Tron white cycle stereo that got going on here, right?
Okay, let's hang on.
he's now steering with the remains of the brake line across the top of the monitor.
Steering will be too dynamic. But I think the spring is broken in this thing and
How does this end? I don't think I actually saw the end of this video. Oh, whatever. Yeah, so that's Hang On. Did anybody ever see that thing in an arcade? Yeah, I totally remember Hang On.
That was a super hang on as well. Right?
Yeah, there was. I don't even remember. There are home ports of those Hang On games. I don't know how they play. I assume with a controller. But like, obviously, that has to exist in the arcade. If you can fit one of those in your living room, let alone afford one of those in your living room, enjoy. I'm not that guy, right? Unless you're like, does anybody remember that Richard Pryor movie, The Toy?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the rich kid from that movie had one of those in his gigantic room of toys. Also, that movie is hella racist. Don't watch it. It's weird. So to give a more modern example, has anybody? I'm assuming the internet has heard.
Someday we'll
of,
flip a table.
Yeah, I assume people have heard of Jojo Dagaishi, which is a super table flipping game. My friend Jason Tubes, who is a co-host on Game Bar podcast that I'm on, played this because he lives in San Francisco and there's an arcade in San Francisco's Chinatown that has this. I know, GDC, right? So, yeah, so they have this and I was like, oh man, it's a game, so if you don't know this, if you don't know this trope from Japanese popular culture, a thing people do when they're mad is flip the table, right? Like, and so they made a video game. Flipping the table. It's
Don't
awesome.
you get like extra points for hitting certain things or something?
Yeah. Your family.
They give a score. Just wait. Just watch the videos. It's fun.
Is that a drive?
Oh, apparently one stage of this is you're dead, and you flip your own coffin at your own wake. This appears to be the beginner stage of Mad at My Kids and Wife, who's terrifying looking,
Yeah.
just like this master computer from Tron polygon face that looks like it's really cheap. It's scary. So you kind of can't see the controller that she's using to play, but it's
It's
just
shaped like a
it's a little mini. It's like a kotatsu table without the blanket, right? And what you do is you slam your hands down on it to build up rage, and then when your rage is full. And so the deal is to try to flip as much stuff in the house to destroy it as you can. I love the anger god, right? He's just like, I'm sort of mad. No, I'm super furious.
The replay is the best.
Yeah.
Bullet time.
The Matrix bullet time. Yeah, like you can see the exact moment when the TV not only gets hit but then explodes into fire, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. There's a song too.
Yeah.
That's the best part. The replay is playing over a song. That's what the letters are at the bottom. Is the
Oh man, I should recognize that from class. Yeah. Getting
Yeah.
done in 2 days.
And then you get like that poor TV, man. Stuff's falling off shelves. So they tell you they end up not only telling you how far you flipped the table, but they scroll up a list of things that you hit and how much they were worth in yen. Yeah.
Oh.
Good times. And again, you could probably do that with a Kinect, but don't. Just flip an actual table. Although that would be cool if there was like a table peripheral you could buy,
Yeah, just
right?
right? Accelerometers up to the.
Yeah, no, because you could buy that taiko drum set, right, for the taiko drummer. So hey, people are kind of more comfortable with silly behavior in shared public spaces, right? Mimetic games are kind of a chance for people to act out that sort of silly, not acceptable behavior in a space where that is not only accepted but encouraged, right? That's the beauty of Choujou Dagaishi, is that like I could never flip a table at home, but so angry, why is my funeral so bad? Right, and then off goes the coffin. So Yeah, and true to the kind of the standard for mimetic games, even in like Wiimote, Kinect, I guess Move, control stuff, there's a Magic Crayon sort of deal, right? Where the complexity of the thing that you're doing has been reduced down to a very simple thing. You don't have to do all of the stuff that it takes to ride a motorcycle to play Hang On, but you can use some of it, right? Like, you can do this crazy massage motion deal that I'm doing with my hands right now, but you don't actually have to shift gears or not hit other people, literally, right? So that's kind of a cool thing about arcades, is that they give you this mimesis chance, right? So another part of the arcade experience is kind of performing virtuoso play. Getting the high score is really important, so now I'm going to come back to that 3 letters thing. Gold standard for arcade games for the longest time, if you got the high score in the end, and it was usually somewhere between top 10 and top 20, you could put in your 3 initials, right? Which, granted, a lot of these games came from Japan, where 3 characters would be enough for your whole name, usually. In the US, it was your initials, right? Because there was only space for 3 characters. I do not know a single human being who ever put in their actual initials. It was always ass, right? It was, what dirty word can I spell with 3 letters? And everyone was like, ass, right? And then we put it in. So, like I said, that's how you can tell if a human being has played an actual arcade cabinet or not. Is the number 1 score ass? Yes. So, getting a high score is not always about performance, though. It's not always about someone like, I'm going to be that guy from The Who's Tommy, right? And I should point out, pinball is definitely an arena where, like, virtuoso play and then a crowd gathering around you is a thing that happens all the time, right? Like, that's actually where that trope that The Who's Tommy was then sort of partially built off of came from. But the drama kind of comes from the will they or won't they tension, right? Like, oh, she's trying for the high score. Is she gonna get number 1? Oh, I gotta stay and find out, right? And then, so you're not actually playing the game, but you're there in the space and you're part of it, and there's this great energy.
And you hear the group go, oh.
Right. So this is, and I'm gonna watch this whole thing because it's called humor.com.
Okay.
But they did an interview with a guy who, if you've ever heard of the documentary King of Kong, they did an interview with the guy who took the title from the King of Kong guy, right?
We are at Barcade in Brooklyn, and today we are honored to be joined by Dr. Chen, currently the world record holder for high score in Donkey Kong. So let's run through your credentials briefly. You have a computer science degree from Harvard, a mathematics degree from Harvard. You are a doctor. And you are the world champion of Donkey Kong.
Correct.
Which of those would you say?
I just wanted to pause this long enough to go, Donkey Kong. Sorry. The way that he's saying it is just cracking me up really hard. Sorry, college humor guy. Mocking your pronunciation is really mean. But it's fine.
Is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, to the world, Donkey Kong, but to me, probably the dual degree from Harvard. But
So I mean, to me, it's a lesser known story I haven't said it yet.
How did you come to start playing Donkey Kong seriously?
Well, I saw the film The King of Kong in 2008, shortly after it came out, and it sort of got me interested in Donkey Kong because I was like, why are so many people interested in Donkey Kong? Why do people care about this score so much? I mean, before I saw the film, I literally played one game of arcade Donkey Kong my entire life.
You're terrible at Donkey Kong, run as fast as you can to the top. Don't grab the button.
It's amazing how difficult this game is, and yet how popular it became. It's very hard to just sit down and play.
I was like talking about it. He's like, no. You gotta get ready to run.
Oh, you don't. Wait, pass it. Wait.
Nice.
Get ready to jump.
Also, this thing that's happening right now is also a thing that happened in arcades, right? You would have the new person playing the game and the grizzled veteran who's standing next to you going, then, right? Very common experience.
My goal when I started playing was not to set a world record. I was just trying to kill time and have some fun.
Wait, what's going on here? You just get points for jumping in the next
This
Donkey
is
Kong?
kind of a bug in the game.
Alright, camera's out. Hold on.
So I'm gonna stop that there.
That is cheap.
It is cheating. I agree. Get your Donkey Kong points legit, Dr. Chen. God. Right. So that was one example. This video is not okay. Did anybody play the old Star Wars wireframe 3D shooter?
Oh yeah.
I have an embarrassing story about myself to share, which I guess maybe is my way of getting back from making fun of that guy's pronunciation. But I wanted to link this because I would never in a million years tell you to read YouTube comments. However, there's an awesome story in this one by this guy right here. Oh, no. Stop video. Not yet. All right. So yeah, this story right here. He got 81 million played overnight at a 7-Eleven, only trumped by the delivery dolly that ran over the plug.
Oh my
Which
God.
is grounds for murder, in my opinion. You get 81 million score in any arcade game, and some dude with a truck full of Twinkies is like, oh, sorry, I unplugged your game, bro. Just kill him on the spot. But had a ton of free Slurpees from the overnight clerk as well. 16 hours. I can't imagine doing anything other than sleeping for 16 hours, for the record. Yeah, but no, this game is, and it's not, that actually, the funny thing is that guy was not the uploader. It was just somebody who saw this and had his own story to share. But yeah, so this is someone attempting to get the high score on the 1983 arcade Star Wars game. Was like an aviator stick, like the control stick of a plane, just rotating back and forth. Bonus for shooting all towers. I also hope some Star Wars fans somewhere is going, this isn't how it was in the movie. Welcome to video games, my friends. Rail shooter. So you kind of control your movement a little bit, but for the most part it's a rail shooter.
It still looks so pretty.
I know, it's surprisingly colorful. I do think it's funny that there's like a whole generation of indies out there that are like meticulously attempting to recreate this aesthetic in games now. Just like, oh my god, brightly colored wireframe, so good!
I literally just remembered to do that.
It's amazing. Okay, 100,000 points for using the Force. There's no button. In fact, I think. Yeah. You just know. The game was psychic. Okay, so, and the hilarious thing about this video is that he then just loops those 3 parts of that game over and over.
Oh my god.
And over and over. And that was kind of the high score quest for a lot of the old school arcade games that looped really fast, right? Was that you played through the entire game in maybe 5 minutes eternally. And the idea was that you had to keep going, and every successive iteration of the game got harder and harder and harder until eventually the game was like, suck it! And you lost your board, right?
Kill screen and just died.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, no, some games did have that kill screen, which by the way, is not about killing. It was to kill the game, right? It was for the developers to go, hey, you went a really long time on 1/4, which doesn't make us jack. So guess what? Game over. So, here's the embarrassing story about this game. If your shields get really low and you're playing on easy or medium, you'll hear Luke say, R2, increase the power, or something like that, and then you'll get some of your shields back, which you can see at the top, like you had 9 counts, so you can get hit X number of times. When I was playing this game in the arcades, and I was maybe 8, and I heard Luke say that, I thought that the game could hear me. And so when I thought that I needed extra power, I would say out loud, R2, increase the power. I don't know that it ever worked. I'd like to believe that it did, and don't crush my dreams, thanks. Yeah. So, okay, so that was you could really dig pretty deep into virtuoso play. If you've never seen King of Kong, you probably should. It's actually kind of fascinating. Also, that Dr. Chen guy apparently has like a Donkey Kong rivalry with an Italian bodybuilder.
What?
I don't know. I know it is a bodybuilder, and I know it is not from the US, but yeah, some sort of Donkey Kong rivalry going on. Just Google that. It's entertaining. Like, there's a video that the bodybuilder then sent to Dr. Chen, where it's just like a Donkey Kong cabinet in his house in the background, and he's like sitting on a weight bench, like taunting him shirtless.
Bro, do you even jump over girls?
Thank you. That's. Do you even lift hammers? Yeah, so multiplayer is a really core value for a lot of arcade games, and even if it's just like alternating one player, two player, right, where first player plays and when they die, the second player gets to jump in. Most arcade games have some kind of multiplayer capacity because, again, they're in public spaces, and the idea is that you want to have multiple people engaging, which means more quarters. Like, cynically, arcade games are pretty much built to get you to put money into them forever. Right? Like, that doesn't make them not fun, it doesn't make them evil, but coin drop as a term, as a goal, is like the sun that the arcade orbits from the point of view of people who make games. So, well, who make arcade games. I'm certain the people who make games now probably don't care. That was too many qualifications. You know what, internet? I don't have to defend everything to you. Whatever. People care about money. Deal with it. So, increasingly, arcade game developers gave better and better structures for cooperative simultaneous play, right? And those games are not always competitive. Sometimes the focus is on being a cooperative player instead, right? On making it so that people could play together towards a certain goal. And of course they made those games so that you could die all the time. So the idea was that, like, oh, my friends are still playing, oh, but I'm dead. Mom! And then you come back with a $5 bill, it's just like, yes, can still keep going. Oh. So, this is in my opinion, this is the OG multiplayer co-op arcade game, Gauntlet. So did anybody who here has played the original Gauntlet in the arcades? Yeah. Who here is either about to die or needs food badly? Probably both.
How about shooting the food?
I do love that the Gauntlet game driver in like the home console versions started to get really mean. Like the Gauntlet Dark Legacy game driver was like, don't shoot food, dumbass. I totally want to make a version of Gauntlet now that's just got like GLaDOS as the game driver, and she just constantly mocks you. Don't shoot cake. So yeah, sorry to that cake joke. Deal with it. So yeah, this is Gauntlet. Thumbs up if you think Wizard needs food badly. So Gauntlet was overhead.
Treasure 100 points.
It's his synthesized voice, I think.
Yeah. No, it's totally that. So there were four people you could play: the warrior, the Valkyrie, the wizard, the yeah. And the game would constantly tell you this stuff, but like, yeah. So basically, what you got was a giant counter of health, and every coin you put in the machine gave you more health. I think like 1,000 health, right? But the problem is that your health ticked down every second, and then if an enemy hit you, it ticked down even faster, right? So the goal, this literally was a money machine. It's just like, do you want to keep punching ghosts in the face? I hope you brought a lot of quarters.
It's like the OG microtransaction.
No, for real, no. DLC is like, I wish I could be Gauntlet. And supposedly these characters all had different characteristics. Like the warrior was supposed to be tough, but he sucked at magic. The Valkyrie was like balanced. The wizard was like frail, but yeah, really good at magic. But magic is just a potion, and you press it, and everything dies. So being good at magic actually doesn't count. I don't know. Game weird.
But the wizard was squishy.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, do you like hard mode? Put on this dress. Yeah. Oh, there's also Death, who just wanders around and you can't kill it.
Ow.
She sounds so bored.
I know, I'm trying to imagine what... Add points anytime for extra health. Just in case you forgot, we want your money. I'm trying to think of what female employee of Atari back in the day had someone come in her office and go, okay, look, you have a really nice voice, and I need a favor. Like, I can't imagine that they went to some professional actress and were like, hey, guess what? We need you to say ow, oof, ow, ow, over and over again.
Are you sure it wasn't just like the sound engineer coming up with the mic behind her and just like poking?
Hey, Elizabeth. Hey, thanks! And then he just runs off. I don't know. That's a thing that could happen. It's not outside the realm of possibility. We don't know what went down in Atari in the 1980s, right? Like they were busy making ET. I don't know. So yeah, but you can also see the cabinet, right? Is that there's a dedicated stick for each player. And actually, the awesome thing about the Gauntlet cabinet, one, that giant ass dedicated speaker, so that you could sample. You could just drink in all of the sampled voice that they put in, but also right over the coin slots, because you had to put the right coin in the right slot to play the character you wanted, and the coin slots all say the name of the character. So the red thing is like, red guy's name, the warrior, put your money here. So yeah, that is a thing that would then move on to this. Who played the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles brawling game? So, same principle, right? Like if you look at the cabinet, it's all color-coded, right? Because if you liked red, Raphael was your turtle. And if you were rad and were like, please, right, then Raphael was your deal. But if you were like, no, I'm a nerd, I like Donatello, plus the bow was like super powerful in the NES version, I guess. And then if you're like, no, I'm kind of a stick in the mud and also blue's my favorite color and you really are, right? Like they were all color-coded. And playing at the yellow station meant you were playing Michelangelo, and that was it, right? Like Gauntlet, that was the person, that was where you put your coin in. Did anybody here ever have a fight, by the way, with your friends? It's just like, no, I want to be Donatello. No, I want to be Raphael.
That was my X-Men fight, but yes.
Oh, okay. We'll get to that. So, yeah. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I want to show you a little bit of this, because it's awesome. That Simpsons video we saw before, by the way, very similar. Like, same publisher, same principle. This is chaos, right? It's just ridiculous.
You ever lose track of which one you were playing as and thought you were moving to somebody else and got really confused after?
I think that's just life.
Yeah, all the time. Because they're functionally identical, right? Other than the weapons and the color of their headband, you're like, it's green, everything's green, what's going on? Yeah, but these brawlers, like, and they took their cue from earlier brawlers, like Final Fight, which if you've never played that, it's by a Capcom company making Street Fighter, and it's seriously just like walk left to right, punch, 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 win. Occasionally punch a barrel, which mysteriously has a turkey in it, and then beat that turkey, right? Like, brawlers and like food just mysteriously being in objects. I don't know what's down with that, but it is such a trope. Just like, oh, here's this barrel meat, like the most delicious meat. Yeah. So yeah. Turtles at Work, and of course there was an NES port of this that turned out to be terrible bad, and everyone was really bummed about it. It's too. Man. Can you do that with a trackpad? I'm trying to zoom in. Can I?
I think you have to turn on the preference. You have to turn it on the preferences.
Nah, I'm not gonna. Google TMNT arcade cabinet, and then look for that picture on the right-hand side of an actual woman dressed as April O'Neil, and she's really got that like. The agency didn't say I was going to be doing this when I came here for this job. Expression on her face, right? She's just like, what is on my head? That picture is amazing.
The guy's Canadian. The bodybuilder was Canadian.
Oh, he's Canadian?
That makes it less cool.
Hey.
An Italian bodybuilder. The Canadians are just like nice people.
Maybe Maybe he's of Italian. Oh, really? So it's not believable? I thought he was competitive, but he's Canadian. They're too nice.
He's politely offering to be my rival.
Yes. Well, I'd like to compete with you. Is that cool? Oh, that's cool. Yay. Yeah, so.
He also happens to be good at video games.
He might be of Italian descent.
I should look harder.
You can check.
No,
I don't know.
Canadian
I don't
is
know.
override.
So many letters from Canada coming soon. What were you saying about us on the internet? This is the game that Philip was talking about, the X-Men brawler.
Yeah.
With the double wide screen. There's actually two versions of this. This is the cool version that had all six, because it was a 6-player brawler, right? And it had 6 different X-Men. Nightcrawler, and these are all like 80s Rob Liefeld X-Men, so the designs are all totally bananas. I'm so sad that Aurora doesn't have her ridiculous mohawk thing going on.
She's also red.
Yeah, I guess.
That might have been printed.
Oh, she is kind of a cherry red in that photo. That's weird.
Like 3-color printing going on in there.
We can't afford the 4th color because we spent all that money on this super awesome monitor.
Worth it.
So this is the same principle, right? Where there was a coin slot for each character, and yeah, people have had like fist fights almost erupt over this shit. I was lucky that I was a little pro-gay, and I'm like, Dazzler! And nobody ever wanted Dazzler, and I was like, no, she's so awesome! That's the most shameful story. No, totally. I was just like, oh no, nobody wants Dazzler? No, I'll be an awesome pop star that turns light into explosions. Cool. Coin! So, there are 2 versions of this. Well, actually, there are 3 versions. This is the everybody can play together 6 players version where there's 1 slot for every X-Man. And the weird thing about this game compared to other brawlers is that usually in other brawlers, most of the characters were functionally identical, right? They were only cosmetically different. These played a little differently because every X-Man had a mutant power that you could use, and the mutant powers were pretty much just like screen clearing nonsense, but they all had, like, they were different. Like Cyclops had the I-beam, and Nightcrawler teleported 2 people, and Dazzler was just awesome, I guess. But like, the best one is the distinctly Japanese pop culture Wolverine's ability to slash his claws like this, which just made like a big shiny slash wave, right? And I saw so many American fans go, "That's not a thing." He can't do that. I'm like trying really hard not to do the Francis voice right now, you guys. He can't do that. He cannot ability here, right? So
Did all of the characters slide in half after that happened?
oh god, wouldn't that be the best thing? Cherry blossoms start floating down. You hear, woo!
You do that a little bit.
We have a whole game jam for you to make that game, by the way. So this was the cool version, in my opinion, which I saw at Darien Lake. There's also a drag queen who named herself Darien Lake. Upstate New York guy, give him a thumbs up right now. Whatever, internet. So, yeah, I played this version. There's also one version that's like only 4 players, and then you select your X-Man. That's not even nearly as cool. Because that was like a first come, first serve, like, yeah, I pick Wolverine, and then the rest of the console just like starts beating you in the head. And then there was another version of this that didn't have the awesome monitor, so they were like stapled together. It was it was like two of the single screen arcade cabinets, like back to back. Which you can connect arcade machines that way, right? Like you can have machines that run multiple machines running off the same card. This is actually really popular in Japan with things called candy cabinets. Japanese arcades, when they tried the American way of having people stand right next to each other to play, found that they didn't have as good return. Like Japanese players didn't want to do that. So somebody was like, okay, I'm going to put these 2 things back to back so people don't even have to see each other, let alone touch each other. And they call it, I don't know why they're called candy cabinets, actually.
I thought it
there
had to
candy
do
inside?
with the fiberglass material they make them made of, so they're all kind of like shiny and glossy. They're not made out of wood.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that's what the quad.
Although that's not really wood, it's more like clapboard, but whatever. Yeah, no, they are, and we have one. If you've never seen a candy cabinet before, we have 2.
Set up in exactly the way that you described it.
Yes, we do. We have a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 candy cabinet. Yeah. that was rescued from an arcade by the Gambit Lab, which is now in CMS. If you've never seen a Candy Gambit before, drop by CMS. Which have one. Plays model maybe. Yeah, so that's the thing you can do, right? You can rig that up. But in the US, that's not how things usually go. Like you kind of have that people standing side by side deal. This was another example of that. Somebody linked this to me on Twitter last night, and I was like, are there any games that do that? Where it's like multiple people playing cooperatively but on different machines, and apparently this is War. I don't know what the rest of it is. It just says War. But like these are 3 machines that are linked together, so all of these people are playing the same game cooperatively, but they're all controlling separately on one machine. That was pretty rare, but it is a thing you can do. So to kind of bring these two, like the virtuoso play, like I'm really good at this game publicly, and the I'm playing with other people thing together, I think competitive games really are where that shines, and I think that's kind of the quintessential arcade experience for a lot of people, right? I think fighting games are really, and this is where I have some expertise, but like I think,
on Amazon.
yeah, available now. Just today. I think fighting games are really where this finds its fullest flower, right? Like you got 2 people playing together and the playing to a crowd aspect, and that's like really important and critical to them, right? That feeling of energy and power that you get out of that. But there are other games that leverage that too. This is not technically an arcade moment, but I think it kind of exemplifies one of the really awesome things about playing competitively in the arcade, so I'm going to show it anyway. I'm certain everyone in this room has already seen this video, but if not, what the hey.
Rare footage of Daigo actually angry.
That's its third battle. Overcome, growl. Now the bird putting Daigo down.
100%. True story. A fighting game fan last night on Twitter, when I mentioned I was putting this video in the talk, was like, you weren't even there. He was like, this is the Woodstock 1969 of the fighting game community. And he's probably right, right? Like, people show this video all the time, but I think the cool thing about it for showing it to people who don't really engage with or know anything about fighting games is that it is immediately possible for them to grasp what is going on because of how the crowd reacts, even if they don't really know what just happened. Right? Like every time somebody's like, so what actually happened in that video? And I'm like, okay, so there's this thing called parrying, and people go, stop. Right? Like they just cut me off at that point in the explanation, and I'm like, I just say ridiculous things like, he caught a Hail Mary pass, and they're like, oh yeah. Okay, I get it, right? Like the technical explanation of what happened is like, okay, so there's Street Fighter and there's this thing called parry. And it lets you do this. And people really, they do cut me off mid-explanation. And I'm like, oh, it's such a shame. Because the actual explanation is really cool. That he did
I'd like
this.
to stop being clueless.
Yeah, like Daigo Umehara, who was playing Chun-Li, the character that came, or no, he was playing Ken. I cannot believe I just did that. Street cred has completely evaporated. Right, so, but, he was, Daigo Umehara and Justin Wong are very big names in the fighting community, and they're kind of luminaries, right? And Daigo is really kind of the paragon of skill for many people. And Justin was about to beat him, and Daigo really kind of made us what felt like a superhuman play at the end, right? Like it required such precise, incredible timing. It was such a bonkers display of skill that doesn't even seem like it should be possible. And then, not just to do that, but then to turn it around and immediately beat this person that was about to finish him up and win the tournament, right? It's such a like, no wonder the crowd lose their shit. I would, right? I would have been like, I cannot believe that just happened! Wow! Right? And a lot of the people that I talk to for my dissertation in the book who are into fighting games, a significant number said, I saw that video and that made me want to be part of this community, right? Because they were like, I can't believe that's possible. The energy in that room was wow, right? And they really wanted to be part of it. And I think that thing that just happened there, that public display of people watching while two people like battle it out and show their skill. I mean, it's sports ball for nerds, a little bit. All right, that's really reductive, but like a lot of the same stuff that makes watching competitive sports enjoyable also went into watching and made watching public play in arcades enjoyable, right? So arcades are kind of like, you know, they are the sports ball venue for nerds in many ways, and so are, you know, esports now as that rises up. But I mean, kind of it is sort of strange if you think about it, that physical, like esports tend to be, well, maybe not, right? Because the fighting game play that gets displayed out to the world now is increasingly overstreamed, which is pretty much how esports are delivered too. So like the importance of the physical venue is sometimes de-emphasized, but having been at a few fighting game tournaments, there is very little substitute for actually being in the room when somebody makes an incredible play. Because you can feel, like you can just, I was at an EVO, which if you've never heard of it, the Evolution Series is a really huge fighting game tournament. And I was there to watch and observe and take notes. And I was there for the finals, and actually Daigo and Justin, because it was the year that I went, was the year that Street Fighter 4, the first Street Fighter game that was new in like a decade, came out. So everyone was really hyped up. And it was Daigo and Justin in the finals, and those finals went on for like 45 minutes to an hour because they kept seesawing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, right? Like one would beat the other, and then the other would beat the one, and like you could have, people say that phrase, you could cut the tension with a knife. I would have needed a chainsaw. Like that room was just vibrating, and you can't, like, as much as I love live streaming, there is no substitute for that live experience, and that live experience has a lot to do with the persistence of arcades and arcade history being really important in that community. So, sidebar. But there are non-fighting game examples of this too. I'm gonna give, okay, so this is an example of the crowd for people playing DDR. This is not the typical DDR watching crowd in my experience.
Oh, no, it totally is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I used to play competitively. It was pretty much all dudes like that.
Just staring?
Yes.
Okay, so my DDR experience is atypical. Hers is not. Apparently this is how it goes. You just got people staring.
You usually have someone off to the side that's trying to shadow you and trying to do moves on the floor while you're doing it. Which is really distracting and annoying when they do it right next to you and you accidentally see your arm and your face and you get that.
Just stiff arm that guy in the face.
Total accident.
Beat it! If you've never played DDR, by the way, or any of its DDR likes, like In the Groove, or any of the, well, and there's non-Gamani games that are pretty much DDR 2, right?
Yeah, kind of, but...
Look at the disdain on that face. There's other dance, I guess. Yeah, but like, if you've never seen a crowd of people watching DDR, I don't know, like, I've had the experience of people just like, clapping with the music, cheering, dancing and stuff.
I have to say, the description of people shadowing the moves is a lot closer to my memory of DDR crowd in Singapore.
Yeah.
As opposed to the people who are studying the game like it's a chess match, which is what you just showed.
I know, right? Which actually is kind of cool if you think about it, because I do enjoy the idea that one of those guys, and it was overwhelmingly male, which is unfortunate. I do enjoy the idea that one of those guys has got like the Masterpiece Theater voice in his head going, oh yes, he stepped on that arrow from the left. It's an excellent maneuver. What is he going to do next? And I'm like, he's probably going to keep dancing like the arrows tell him to. That's how the game works.
Actually, there's a whole other, so in competitive DDR, there's two different kinds. There's where you go for points and you're like just trying to score, and then there's performative DDR.
I got a video.
Yes.
I got another video.
Sorry.
I'll watch another video.
No. Actually, you cheat.
Actually, Todd, there's multiple cases of competitive DDR. Alright, so I'm going to show Zoe's multiple types of competitive DDR. I think this is the type you're talking about.
Yeah.
actually really hard to determine what is the game producing crowd feedback and is the crowd giving any feedback.
It's actually funny, it's like that.
Say again?
A later iteration on DDR called In the Groove, like by a different company, actually would write it in so you had to use your hands and sometimes hit 4 arrows at once because of
Yeah, and there was a
popularity
really
of it.
good in the group video of people doing that, but it was much more complicated. I couldn't find it. I wanted to show it. Was it in the group Amani though?
No,
No?
it was a.
Yeah. I really wish there was like a Wimbledon clap afterwards. Just like, yes, I can dance, well done. Yeah, but that was kind of, I think that was more kind of what you were talking about, right? Where
Yeah, like usually you'd have a tournament that, like during tournament play, there'd be like people that just were score, like going for score, and then people that would go for performance, and you'd have the same, they'd be different brackets in the same tournament.
yeah, I mean that's kind of the cool thing about DDR, right? Is that it's partly I want to be good at this game, and I want to like. If you've ever seen someone do some of the really hard DDR songs, I'm like, are you a robot? Like, please give me your cyborg leg implants because I can't this.
Yeah, their knees are just vibrating. You can't.
I know, right? It's just like it's like watching Lord of the Dance
Yeah,
at like
sure.
500 times speed.
Like some of the best tournament players in the arcade I played with were just lucky because they had really big feet. So what they would do is they would stand on 2 arrows once,
Oh,
like
geez.
one on both diagonals, and just lean back and forth. Not actually lift their legs.
I don't know though, isn't it kind of like people who play Wii and then they only do this with the Wiimote?
Oh yeah, it's
They do the
considered
wrist
slightly
movement.
dishonorable.
Yeah.
Like holding onto the bar.
Yeah,
Like, you're not
ah,
never
such
supposed to hold
jerks.
onto the bar.
Ah, you don't know the true DDR. Right, but
Arcade code.
there is kind of, and I didn't really talk about it for fighting games, but there totally is for fighting games too, right? Like kind of this aspect of, not only am I trying to be publicly good at the game and give a good match to the person that I'm playing with, but I'm also playing to the crowd and kind of engaging the energy and really, there's showmanship as much as there is virtuoso gameplay, right? Which is why these things, competitive games are really where these things two come together. There's the Monty is kind of like, they made a whole bunch of music games for Konami. They made this one called Para Paradise, and I feel kind of bad showing this video. I'm sad that you can't hear the song. But para dancing, at least culturally, is a lot of upper body movement and kind of back and forth, arms everywhere, right? So I don't know how to dance, right? So. Huh? No, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. Para champion, by the way. Yeah, for the record, if the kimono doesn't give it away, Para Paradise is like the anime convention game of choice for many years. Yeah, I love that my boss, the master assassin, is also Para Paradise. Sometimes. I've seen it, internet. I've seen him play. It's unreal. So like this relationship between the crowd and the players is really important in these situations because that energy feeds back into the play, right? So it's this cycle of, kind of ramping up the drama and really like if you, this weird thing I noticed, and I don't think it's 100% representative, but it was kind of strange. Like when I was watching matches at EVO in 2009, people would get perfects, like they would just win with a perfect, and people would be like, Wimbledon clap. Right, and I'm like, wow, but isn't a perfect really hard? Like, shouldn't you be cheering your ass off, right? And they did for a few of them.
Yeah, but there's no struggle there.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, right? There's no drama, there's no tension about who might or might not win, and a perfect only really feels interesting when it seems like somebody had to work really hard for it. And I think some of the perfects I saw were like, I guess it was really a mismatch, and so it was kind of, it didn't feel cool to cheer because of the person who just lost, and it's kind of like that wasn't very dramatic, so it didn't generate a lot of energy. I don't know, it's complicated, and I haven't actually fought in a fighting game tournament before, so I don't really know what it's like to be the winner. I probably do know what it's like to be the loser. Yeah, no, but like the idea of drama and tension is really important. Like that the more back and forth something gets, the closer it gets to like, the more you don't know, but it feels like you should know, the more the energy gets powerful in the room, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of the really cool thing about the arcade space is that like you can pull in so many strangers because that feeling of energy is really universal, right? Like that tension of, oh, this is so dramatic, and sometimes all it takes is the crowd, right? You're like, why are there 15 people gathered around that DDR machine? And then you walk over and you're like, what is even going on? Dancing, right? Like you just see somebody busting out like ninja moves on the DDR machine, and you're like, wait. Whoa. And then you stand and watch them for 20 minutes, right? And then of course, in some arcade cultures, there's like ideally you then put in your quarter and you're like, oh, I'm gonna try this, right? Which then goes back to people saying like, I saw that Dago Perry video and I'm like, whoa, I super want to get into fighting games now.
Or it happens in reverse where you're like, I can't follow that. I'm gonna wait for someone else to go because I don't want to go right after that person.
Yeah, this guy. I'm with you. So kind of wrapping this up, because I thought I had planned a 45-minute talk and it's now been an hour and a half.
Isn't it supposed to last an hour and a half? Yeah.
I was told 45 minutes to an hour.
They knew.
Whatever. I don't think we're going to have a really extensive Q&A session with 3 people.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
just used up the question time. Whatever. So kind of to wrap this up, arcade games and spaces are really structured in ways that support them being about public play, right? It's about being in a space where other people can see you play, where other people can jump in and participate. Damn it! All right, so I meant to make this point back in the multiplayer section. Jump in is important, right? Like being able to both jump in and jump out of a game quickly because you're in a public space and people might have to move out, move in, right? So here's another terrible story about how I'm an awful person. So Nintendo actually used to make these things called the NES Power Station. And it was an arcade machine, but it was really just a Nintendo, like an NES, in a box. And you put in a quarter and you got time to play an NES game. And I got swindled once, for reals. Like I was in a mall in Waterbury, Connecticut, and I put in my quarter, and this was before Mario 3 came out for the NES, but it was in the NES Power Station, so you could totally play Mario 3 before Mario 3 came out. Like, guys. Mario 3. Right, so I was at the mall playing this, and I put in my quarters, and I had like 400 seconds, because it was a total ripoff, by the way. Like a quarter got you a minute and a half. Right? I'm just like, a minute of Mario is a quarter? What? So, I didn't really think that because I was 1, 11, and 2, 23. Right? So I was playing and I put in my quarters and a kid comes up and says, hey, can I play? He was older than me. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And so he puts in a quarter and adds time. And then, so he starts in as Luigi, right? And so I die, and so he plays, and then he dies, and then he keeps playing Mario. Because he's like, but I put in my quarter. Yeah, I got swindled. Long story short, NES Power System, bullshit. So, yeah, that drop in, drop out idea also super important in the arcades, right? Like being able to just, like the I got next thing in the fighting game community, so important, right? Like getting you literally take your quarter and put it up on the thing. And what I don't understand is that there has to be some sort of really rigorous honor system going on there, right? Because how do you tell your quarter from that guy's quarter? You don't.
I brought a Canadian.
There's just a loony up there.
Yeah.
I don't really need the whole dollar, but it signifies that I'm Canadian.
Some people did buttons and stuff.
Nice.
Because it's like, I think part of the reason too is our arcade was kind of like a little bit sketchy, so if you didn't want to leave the money around, so people just take your quarter and put it and be like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, I kind of don't. I'll just hold on to that. Is that cool?
But like, it's the arcade veterans that were like regulars, we would like totally, the quarter system would be reinstated and everyone would watch each other's back. It was really weird.
No, I mean, I mean, there had to be a really I didn't ever get in those groups because I was so intimidated, right? But there had to be like a really strong inter-player honor system going on, right?
Because it's like the people that are like popular there, basically. Like if couples come back joining, because I remember we had like some turnover of some people that were really kind of rigid douchebags, and as soon as they left the arcade, the whole arcade got better. Just because like people started stealing stuff less, you could leave your bag on the machine and go to the bathroom, you wouldn't have to worry about people going through your stuff. It was really weird.
Yeah, and it seems like that the good players have a social have a social imperative to get the douche canoes out of your arcade.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's your space. People have really strong ownership of that space, right? I hate to keep going back to the fighting game stuff, but that's where my research is. I had people tell me about like, I would get calls during the school day to come to my arcade because guys from another town's arcade came to our arcade and they were beating our guys. They're like, we need you to come beat these guys back for the honor of our arcade. And I was like, that's amazing. Like my mental image went back to like the Japanese pop culture trope of like the dojo destroyer, like the person who goes from martial arts dojo, like collecting their sign, right? And so you've got to get the ringer, like you've got to get the really awesome guy to be like, no, take this dojo destroyer, and then they punch him really hard and leave. I don't know, but I thought that was actually a really cool thing that people have such strong ties to that space, right? They were like, this is my arcade, I want it to be good. This is my community, and I want it to be good. And they do. There is that policing of people who are like, if you're a jerk, they're not gonna put up with it for long. Right, like they're gonna run the people who are not interested in being serious out because they don't want them in their community. They don't want them screwing up their community. All right, I'm gonna finish this slide. Otherwise, I'm gonna be here forever. So like this spectating and peripheral consumption stuff aren't just encouraged, but they're really vital, right? Like I personally think playing an arcade, especially now that I can play arcade games at home. Like, if I don't have people watching me or engaging me, even if they're just making fun of me, it's just like, bro, you're the worst Blue Valkyrie ever. And I'm like, yeah, I know I need food. I always play the Valkyrie. Love me some Valkyrie. Even though, you know why? Because she had a shield. Because I feel like she was like, even the warrior showed up and he's just like, I got a loincloth, I'm good. And I'm just like, no, bro, put on some armor.
It's kind of the reverse.
I know, it's actually sort of awesome, right? It's just like the Valkyrie thought to dress sensibly, and the warrior's like, I'm good. It's like sensible shoes, lady. Good work. But that idea of people watching you play and engaging with your play is really important. And I actually think that's extensible to spaces like MMOs, right? Where people are playing solo, they're doing solo stuff, but playing in the presence of other people, even if that presence is virtual, is really important, right? Like the idea that you're being watched and people understand what you're doing and are doing the same sort of stuff, or at least are interested in the same sort of stuff, is really important. And I think that's, the arcades are a space where that gets really shown. So kind of designing in an arcade style, which is the thing that people are supposed to be doing this week, you might want to take some of these elements and think about it, right? Like the drop-in, the attract mode, all that other good stuff. But really kind of like to help you design for games that pull people in and encourage them to play together in public. So, take us from here. And I'm just going to leave that slide up so you don't start reading my email. Because reasons.
So when you're talking about the performative thing, I totally had it set for when people were watching and of like stuff I could kick the crap out of for New Year, and then stuff that I was still trying to learn and get better at that if nobody was watching I would do. But I didn't want to like fail in front of people.
And you could build tension.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. It was weird, like being able to do gallops, because I would play two pads at once. So like I would do like gallops and spinning things, and you kind of have to also build your set for endurance at that point. Because like you can't
do that forever.
Taxing, yeah. And there's
No.
like some songs that are like you will at the end of the song you'll probably be like and you don't want to do that if
Somebody brings you a hot towel and a water bottle.
Or like if there's somebody that happens to be cute watching you, you don't want to like do the like sweaty
Exactly.
You want to do the hey, yeah, this is no big deal, whatever.
NBD this is so terrible. One of my arcades, so when I went to the University of Wisconsin, first year I lived in Celery Hall, which one, celery, well, but two, it was across the street from a little arcade that was like in this little mini mall in Madison, Wisconsin, and I went there once, and it was right when like the Marvel Superheroes Capcom fighting game had come out, right? And I loved me some Psylocke. I was like, oh my gosh, he's so cool, I want to be her, right? So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go play some, oh man, but there's guys there. And there really was kind of an intimidation moment where I was just like, oh, but, because here's the deal with fighting games, right? In almost no other arcade game space are you forced to defend your money,
Yeah.
right? Like if you put in a quarter to play just like a regular shooting game, the only person you're trying to defend yourself against is the computer. And the idea is that you can beat the computer, right? No problem. That's the whole point of playing. If the computer presents you a challenge and you beat it. In a fighting game, you can put in your quarter, play for 15 seconds of, here comes a new challenger, right? And you're like, oh my god, you look over to your right, and it's just a person you've never met before, and they're like, hey, do you mind if I jump in? And then 20 seconds later, you're on the ground, either in the game or literally, because you're just like, I don't know, right? So, fighting games are where you have to defend your money, right? And it's a very different experience from other fighting games, from other arcade games, right? Like, and I played this guy, I think it was a guy who worked at the arcade, and that was another feature of arcades that was so weird, right? Like, people who worked there were just like, yeah, I'm gonna play. Also, I don't have to pay, because I have access to all the machines, blah, blah.
That's like friends of those people.
Oh, for real, yes. They're just like, yeah, free play, blah, blah, blah. So, and the guy was like, yeah, okay, you can play me. Because I was just like, oh, I really don't, but I quarter, right? So he was just like, okay, I'll make you a deal. You pick one button, and I'll only use that button.
Well,
That just.
I know, part of me was just like,
Yeah.
right? Part of me just wanted to tell him off so hard and like, you know what? I might actually be good at this game, asshole, right? And of course I wasn't, I was terrible. But, so I was like, okay, hard punch. So I just picked hard punch. And of course now as an adult, I'm like, oh, I actually screwed it really hard, right? Because a heart attack does a lot of damage, but it's also usually really open and very punishable. So I ended up beating him. He's just like, yeah, fun, isn't it? And he walks away. I was just like, I guess he was trying to be a cool guy. I don't know, but man, when he was just like, I'll handicap myself, I'm like, you don't have to. I can play. I kind of cherish that memory, but it's also very, very weird looking back on it.
We always had little baby DDR players that like the experienced people would start to take under a week and be like, no, you have to move your body this way instead of like you can move up to this one. It was kind of cool because it wasn't competitive at all. So it was like, oh, there's like somebody, okay, you can move up to basic now, and oh, you're going to learn you're like there's a revelation that happens in VR when you learn that you don't have to be staring straight ahead doing this and being exhausted, and you can turn just that 190-degree turn. That if you can get a beginner to do that, they're fine. So it's like imparting that like stupid Running Man thing where instead of like trying to do it, you're like you just turn your body and then it's
You're
fun.
playing like your Dieter from Sprockets.
Right?
Now it's the time with the offensive dance. So actually I have a question, since I didn't know you were a competitive DVR player. Now I
I don't tell
know.
people for a lot of reasons.
Like now.
and now it's on the internet.
Yeah, and now it's oh, sorry Zoe.
God damn it.
Ah! We can edit that out. In post, we'll just insert something else. I was once a firefighter, so. No, true story. Then you're gonna get emails. Then you're gonna get emails from people going, Zoe, how do I fight fires? I don't even know.
I don't know. I just
Take me
don't
under your
know.
wing.
I'm on the other side of
There's
the
a
fire.
fire. There's a fire, and they send her an email.
Dear Zoe Quinn from BostonFireDepartment.gov.
Urgent fire. What do I do?
Dude, what do we do? It's just like a picture of her being on Mallory Archer with a glass in one hand going, I don't know, try water. Okay, that joke went off the rails fast. So,
Question.
yeah, question. Okay, so like a thing about fighting games I've noticed is that there's a really strong rhetoric of competition is what drives this community. So more people who are better players equals more competition equals a better community, right? So there's an inclusive rhetoric, right? We want more people to play because more people equals more competition. Did that happen in DDR too? Like, did you want to bring people in and teach them
Oh yeah.
kind of the right way to play because more competitors was more fun, was better community?
Actually, almost nobody cared about competition within the arcade. So what we had is we had like a local arcade. Like our arcade had a DDR team that we would then go beat up other arcades with. That's how we did it. So we had like
it was a crew.
yeah, and yeah.
Did you have cool t-shirts?
No, but it was called So Fresh So Albany, which is why I didn't. That is too humiliating. Yeah. So it was really embarrassing. But
I cannot stop laughing at that. Oh my god.
But the real reason that we wanted to bring more people in too is because DDR is really fucking weird. Like, and especially if you're in a mall or someplace where normal people who don't even like video games are around, people will be shitty you. Like, people will come up and make fun of you and like jump on the machines, like people that don't want to play. Like, people will actively bully you while you're sitting there playing you, or like, for like the guys that go like bag behind him and stuff like that. And so it's like, more people, it was like our little, we'll go together against the tides of normal people and the fighting game people who think that we're all freaks, and the racing game people who are like, get out of our arcade, this is loud and annoying. So it was
Although
like,
the strange thing is, I bet those other communities had that same feeling within themselves too, right?
Oh, yeah.
'Cause I know fighting game fans are like that. They're like,
yeah,
everyone thinks we're awful, but you know what? We are a community and we're going to support each other.
yeah.
So,
And like, a weird thing too is like, my arcade, we didn't really have a fighting game community so much, but like the DDR one was the big community. And like, it was just really cool because everybody was really open to new beginner people, and like, it's sort of like we were really, I feel like we almost felt like we were just like really cool and nice to people, that maybe they wouldn't make fun of us so much.
I love that my intercenter photographer, when you said that you had a crew who filled you all in like wearing Oendan outfits, right? Like the Japanese bancho school uniform with the
Yeah.
long black coat and the black slacks. Can you actually do that someday? That'd be kind of cool.
I had
So it's like, so fresh to Albany reunion.
No,
I rock
no.
cosplay.
I totally felt bad because I was dating a guy from the Poughkeepsie team, and we had like a forbidden romance.
Oh my god.
And there was this one arcade that was open until like 2 in the morning in New Paltz that we would drive 3 hours to go, so neither of our crews would get mad at us. And there was no crew there. So we would just do like crazy balls out shit. Like there's this one song where you can mod, so there's a 30 to 45 second span of nothing. So we would cue up that song, do our thing, and then just fucking leave and come back, and nobody would know what the hell was going on.
How is this not already a musical? Can I just
It
ask
is a
that?
musical technically.
Oh.
Yeah, oh god, I shouldn't be saying any of this, especially, oh my god, yeah. Oh, new boyfriend, it's gonna do DDR.
I can't wait for that conversation on the way home. So how to play DDR? Is that a problem? You're still playing DDR. No, and now every trip you make out of town without him is going to be suspicious. Are you going to that place in New Paltz?
It probably doesn't even exist anymore.
I doubt it.
I don't want to find out, you know.
It
But,
is sad. Like, it just makes me think of that Tumblr that's all pictures of blockbusters,
oh.
right? Like, and then it was just closed and they're just like abandoned ruins. It's so Tomb Raider. It's very weird.
One thing too about the DDR thing is like, it's stupid, but DDR did kind of change my life because I weighed double what I did before I started playing DDR. I went from like
It's
being
good
around-
cardio.
Yeah, I went from like being around 300 pounds to like 150, and it was just awesome. Aside from like having stretchy skin.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think that's one of the other reasons like we were so welcoming in community and like be like, yeah, come on, we all used to be fat kids. Except for like the one super scrawny kid that would just show up and was like 14 and just kick everyone's ass and leave and not talk to anybody.
Every arcade had one.
Yeah.
Like the child prodigy who's
Yeah.
just like, I've never actually played before, but I'll give it a try. Triple S score on the hardest song, first go. This isn't so hard. Whatever, kid. Beat it.
Scram.
Okay, this is a terrible but related story. So there's actually, so you know that I have this habit of watching awful gay movies on Netflix. And there's one where, no lie, a guy comes home to find his roommate doing DDR naked. And he's just like, I can't afford a gym in this city, it's good cardio. I'm just like, also, that sounds painful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
How
bouncing
did you do that
involved.
naked?
I don't know, I'm like, put on some shorts, bro. They're just, like, controlling.
Yeah.
Sorry, internet, that went to a weird place.
It's the internet. The internet is a weird place.
I know.
It's a weird place
Have you
right
scared
now.
anyone away yet? Did you
I'm not sure if
know
there was anyone there to scare away.
Yeah, has anyone been banished by this talk going, oh my god, this is not what I signed up for?
Game developer Zoe Quinn on Kotaku.com. Fucking again.
Feel free to change the subject.
Well,
Phil 10.
well, actually, it's about these like these sub communities. So I've been to some arcades, usually the ones that are in large complexes, like the ones with bowling alleys attached to them, where they'll actually just physically break out all of these games, so that almost like along these lines of these communities. So you have you have like all of the puzzle games, which are kind of like, you know, if you've never played an arcade game for, you know, this, and you're just looking to spend a quarter here, you can sit down. There's the fighting game row, which is set up with the candy caps faced the way that you have there.
Fighting game row.
And then there's the DDR section, right, which has its own
The DDR
section.
corner usually. because it's
Yeah.
so fucking
Well,
loud.
no, I mean it's usually pretty large, right? Because the machines themselves are pretty
Yeah,
imposing.
DVR machines are gigantic.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they did it because of the sound considerations as well as the community considerations. But it's funny how the way you were describing it, how neatly that lined up with just the physical partitions. And
Well, isn't that just kind of like how stores like line up products by category so that if you want cereal, you go to the cereal section and then you see all of the cereal?
Well, you see,
Well, you can-
it's true, but not. They say when I don't recall that from even the early '90s, where I felt that was a little bit more of a mishmash, and it was more of like you'd see the dance games on the corners of the room because there'll be more physical space
Oh.
Yeah.
around them, and then
Oh,
the
that's
games
so-
that could be lined up in a row be lined up in a row.
In some arcades, they put it right by the entrance because they thought it would draw people in to come stare at us, but then they would just be really mean to us.
Yes, no, the arcade at Great Northern Mall in Clay, New York was like that. Like it was a there were a lot of arcades that were like company branded.
Yeah.
Like Namco had their fun centers.
Oh
that,
yeah, that's the one that was at Crossgates, is an Namco Fun Center. And there's like an upstairs one that was a dedicated arcade next to the old upstairs movie theater that didn't exist anymore, and then a downstairs one, and everyone would argue over which one was better.
But I think what comes into that though is whether or not you have an arcade owner who's actually engaging with their community. Like I feel like you can tell an arcade owner that doesn't give a damn about who comes into their place, just like the games are just arranged completely in terms of physical space / what's new.
And barely
Right.
work a lot of times. They
Oh
don't-
yeah, no. Like what was the picture that you put up as the poster image for this?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah, it's just like this has bad matters to each quarters. Sorry, right? Like you're just like, oh, but I already put. God damn it, right? And I mean, honestly, arcade games, that cabinet is all packaging, right? Like an arcade game is literally usually a motherboard about this big, right? And then the sticks, which attach to it by cables, and then the TV, which attached to it by cables. Right. That housing is
the TV's massive.
yeah, well, no, I mean, those, like, giant ass CRT monitor, nuts. But okay, I'm watching from some thought first.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I said none of this. Yeah, no, but one of the people I talked to works in an arcade, actually, and that was, being a fighting game fan is how he got into working at his local arcade, right? And he was like, I help the guy who runs the place make decisions about what to get. Like, he told me why they don't have a Tekken 6 machine and that he had to play that at home. The reason being that apparently Namco wants like $1 jillion because a Tekken 6 machine is dedicated. It's a dedicated cabinet, right? Like, you have to buy it and you can only play it there. As opposed to the other cabinets, like that thing, like the mortarboard over you just slip it out and slip another one back in, right? So you don't have to keep buying the new wood frames all the time. You just get the new motherboard and you hook it up, right? So apparently that's why. But he's super into Arcana Heart, which I thought was awesome, right? It's just like, oh my god, that's the game that's all cute anime girls, right? And he's just like, yes. And I knew that I accidentally hit a sore spot. I was just like, no, I own it, and I own the sequel that's on PlayStation Network, for the record, right? But yeah, no, he arranged local tournaments, and I could really tell that the owner of that arcade would have that sort of layout, right? Like that person would put games in strategic places, knowing that people purposefully come to their place to do, like, that communities had gathered around the games that were in there, right? As opposed to other people who are just like, I have this room full of video games, it doesn't matter where they go, I don't know who these people are, and I actually find them kind of scary. Like, and I know arcade owners who did that. Like the guy, that arcade that I was talking about that was near my dorm in Madison, like the guy who owned the arcade owned the the movie theater next door, right? He was just like, I have this extra space, let's fill it with video games, right? But his clerk, like the guy who worked the place every day, knew games, right? So he was kind of like the Eminence Grease, right? Like he was the power behind the throne going, stop it there, right? Which I thought was kind of cool, but I think that's how you can tell those spaces, right? Like the spaces where the people are just like, here's some games to play, and I don't really care. You get a smattering, like stuff is just haphazardly arranged, but arcades that are really engaging with the community that gathers at that arcade arrange things pretty purposefully. Sorry.
I actually I wanted to ask this, I came up with it this morning because it's something I think about a lot. Do you think arcades could come back theoretically if, considering how much weird and interesting stuff is going on peripheral-wise, that makes it impractical to have it at home in the indie space?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, can you imagine an arcade that's just built around JS and Joust?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's these peripherals that are being, or Button. Really,
Yeah.
Like, so Button is a game where you're given, like, everybody has to hold down their button for like 5 or 10 seconds. And the point of the game is that you can do whatever you want to stop other people from doing that. So it's like becomes this thing where you're like messing with your friends and stuff like that. And like there's all these other bigger play games that A, probably require some amount of people, and B, can have really interesting and great peripherals. Like that's what we did at Burning Man with the Charcade. It was like the Super Street Fighter and stuff like that. It's like that's not, that has to happen in one place. I'd like to see something maybe plus fire. I know everybody.
So it's like, let's have it in public, and let's set things on fire.
I won't set this on first. But,
I think the biggest barrier there is going to be insurance liability.
right.
Because if,
Fire.
like, Button played outside your home.
Okay, maybe
it's
not
gotta
Button, but
No, I understand, but I'm saying that's kind of like, the more things you have people do that are physical where they might get hurt, the more owners of the space are going to be like, this is a nightmare waiting to happen, and I don't want to have people sign a waiver when they come into my arcade.
But even just like with weird peripherals, like I've been doing events out of a bar where I bring in indie games and put it on the projector and then people come and play, and that's actually been doing really well. Like just stuff that people wouldn't normally see, like these sort of this is gonna sound really douchey, I'm sorry for this, but like artisanal arcades, do you think that would work? Especially
I mean,
if you
that's kind of
start
what Baby
here.
Castles was supposed to be, right?
Right, well, and Baby Castles is still going strong, right?
I think so. Yeah, no, I think it has a future, but like, it's even that the indie game thing that you do is happening in a commercial space geared for something else, right? And that kind of fuels it, right? Like, and lots of it, you know, how many? Oh, this is Boston. How many events here happen in a bar? All of them, right? I'm surprised we're not in a bar right now.
See you later.
And it's just like, and let's retire folks. But like yeah, I think it could happen.
It's like barcades are doing fairly well. Like there's the actual barcade in like Brooklyn, and I know they're talking about opening one here. Looking at it, there's Snakes and Lattes in Toronto, which is all board games with the same model. And it's
Snakes and lattes, oh my god.
yeah, and then there's a Good Life, which just has like the dark row that you had pictured is just in a bar in the back of the bar now.
Yeah, I think probably the question that I have, and it's the asshole capitalist question though, is how are you going to turn that from here's the thing that we do that's really popular once a month or a week, and then turn it into here's the thing that we can do every day that's going to fund itself.
Well, Snakes and Lattes had to open a second location in their first year because the wait list got to be like 2 hours.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So so there's similar like stuff that is geared towards older people instead of like removing that stigma, like you said, from being the young male urban thing to being sort of capitalizing on the nostalgia and the fact that video games are a little bit more acceptable now than they were then.
Yeah, no, I'm
just wondering what your thoughts
no, between the two, I'm like, yeah, I think that totally could work. / there are people that are already kind of doing it.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of those naysayer capitalist questions that just ran through my head are also running through the head of people who own spaces and would want to do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably, maybe there needs to be more proof of concept pilot attempts first, you know? Like if Snakes and Lattes is doing good, then I would, a board game cafe? I know so many board game groups that would just,
I mean, those
you don't have to play
those
Snakes and
exist
Lattes though, right?
No, there's like 1,500 board games and you pay a $5 cover and they serve beer and coffee. It's the best thing.
Sounds good.
There's one in Singapore that does that, and one of the perks you get in that is that not only can you get food and drink, you can also get the rules explained to you.
Yeah, they have those too. It's like-
You can hire a game advisor? That's
No, it's
amazing!
like all of your servers will know. You can walk in and be like, yeah, I'm, especially like, I've gone on like dates there and group functions there. I'll be like, yeah, we've got like 5 people, I barely know any of them. Can you tell us something cool to play that we can pick up really quickly? And they'll be like, okay, here's this, and this, and bring me like a bunch of games and like be like, do you need any help with the rules? And you can actually buy the board games if you really like them too.
Oh, that's cool.
I recommend this game compared to this latte.
What's a good wine for checkers?
That would be a great article to write up.
That's actually,
I think the answer is any wine. Just
I think it's
drink
a
it.
metagame card.
Probably. Better wine for checkers. White Francia.
Box.
I think, yeah, box wine is the perfect wine for checkers. You just go nuts.
So one thing about the sort of indie arcades is doesn't the Winnipeg
The
indie
Winnitron.
group? Yeah, they build cabs instead
Yeah.
of full arcades, and they distribute the cabinets, or at least they.
Well, what
have
they
them
do
set up.
is they have the plans,
Right.
like you can build your own, and then they have like a server that has all of the games that go to all of the
Oh,
arcade
neat,
games
okay.
on. So it's like a central, like there's a, I really actually do want to build a Bostron, and I was going to do that last year, but then I ran. Like, because they're all called like Wintron, there's a Tron, there's one in.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
But we're
Sorry.
Boston, we have almost the whole.
Bostron.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, but that I think is something where you don't have to make an argument for a whole space, right? Now you can just make an argument for one corner of the space, but that has the indie element. And whereas if you're going to talk about a large number of machines in a space, then it's probably going to be combined with food and drink, especially alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was discussing. I could not shut up about this presentation on Twitter last night. Sorry, Twitter. But I was having a discussion with Seth Rosen, who used to work at Rational, about do like LAN, you remember LAN cafes
Yeah.
in the U.S., right? Where they're just like, hey, play $5 and you can play a man shooter and drink a latte. Well, you probably shouldn't do the same at the same time, right? And like in Southeast Asia, the idea of the net cafe where you go to play games and also consume, cafe food at the same time is really popular. Although I think we both came to the conclusion that the feeling of a PC bong, like in Korea, for example, it's not about communal play in the same way that an arcade is, right? Like a PC bong is about going and playing by yourself because you're doing things like MMOs. But probably maybe that's where that would need to start, is finding people who already have commercial spaces where you can tack on to that commercial space, because that's an established and effective model for arcades already, right?
And that is where all the Trons are right now, I believe they're all in
It's
bars.
attached to bars and cafes and stuff. So, and honestly, food and public performance go together pretty well, right? Because if you're just gonna stand there watching somebody play DDR or a fighting game or whatever for a half an hour, you're gonna be like, Jesus, bear, right?
also
Or
makes you really thirsty.
Yep.
yeah, well, arcades, in my opinion, and granted, I've been to a lot. I haven't been to them all, obviously, but I've been to a pretty large number, and they are usually 1 billion degrees.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's just the close press of bodies, because if you get a lot of human beings in one space, things get hot,
That's why
right?
bees kill things.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a certain kind of bee, when it gets like an invader wasp, the bees all come together and just kind of sit around it and kind of vibrate themselves.
They body
heat
heat it to death?
They body heat it to death. Because the
Bees are terrifying.
It's supposed to be horrible. Like, it's actually only the Oriental honeybee, because they can't keep Italian honeybees very successfully in some parts of Asia, because these freaking wasps, it takes two to decimate a whole hive of Italian honeybees that don't know how to do this.
Wow.
However, the Oriental honeybee, I'm sorry, I used to be a beekeeper, has
cool things. Cool ladies.
Zoe and bees go biz dot. Yeah. Should have known.
yeah, so the wasp cannot handle the same heat, the same temperatures that the Oriental honeybee can, so they just go until it dies.
Jeez.
Yeah, no.
That's
Arcades
amazing.
are thirsty work. Why? Because it's the surface of the sun in that room. So, and this
So
is
fill
so
our kids
weird.
with bees, I got it.
Having from like, okay, what do we have? Bees,
Fire.
beer, fire.
You basically described it.
There we go. I've basically described Zoe's whole career. Bees, fire, beer. Where's it going with this? I have noticed playing the few times that I have played competitive games in public, up here, like my face is just burning by the time that I've made it through a couple games, and I don't know if it's because like,
You get
okay,
nervous.
oh, I'm sure nerves is part of it, but it's also like, again, those games can get pretty tense. Like, okay, so the year that I went to EVO, I actually was like, I'm gonna try and at least play a competitive game for a while, but the only way I could play was online, because the closest arcade to Athens, Ohio, might as well be on the moon, right? So I played Blaze Blue, which was new, and I played it online, and I played with the pads, sorry internet. But I was trying to be good, right? Like I was trying to learn to do things, I was making an effort, right? And when a match got close, and I either won or lost and the game was over, I was like, hey, stop, I need that blood, just quit it, right? Like it's, you can feel that, like your face gets really hot and your pulse gets really high, like that power of tension to mess with your body is pretty
So I tell people that's even a thing in the first place. It's just even watching computers do that to each other is gratifying.
True terrible story. I once attempted to make what I did not know then was a tier list when Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo came out for, it was Super Street Fighter 2, not Turbo. There's only like 18 different flavors of that. When it came out for the Super Nintendo, there was a way to watch the computer fight itself. And so I made everybody fight everybody else once and kept track of which computer won, and who won against who, and who won the most times. And I was like, whoever won the most times was the strongest character. And it turned out to be Chun-Li, which I was like, yes. Because I've always been a Chun-Li fan, right? And I was just like, oh, suck it, Ryu. But, yeah, apparently, which is weird, right? Because when I grew up and then started doing academic work and started reading about what people do to make tier lists, I'm like, that's literally what they do. Well, they don't do it with the computer, right? Like they look at tournament results for tournament A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And they're like, how many times did this person win against this person? And then they control for like this variable. It's super scientific and really, like that communal knowledge production part is really fascinating to me. But tier lists are serious work.
Yeah, look at the Pokemon metagame sometime. Yeah.
Cassandra Claus post about, she's like, okay, so you finished the main story, now you can play competitive Pokemon with
Yeah,
other
you can
people.
play the real one.
Yeah, the real game.
The one that will take like 8 years of your life and have you slap fighting over emulators. It's like, no, well, this moveset works and this doesn't.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the word effort values, I'm like, no, effort is.
Those are the easy ones.
I know. It's just like, oh, no. I have my team of Eevees. I have the one Eevee that's new with the creepy ribbons, and that's all I want. Thanks. For real though, guys, Sylveon, like those ribbons, they're not ribbons, they're part of its body. It's weird.
But it's cute.
It is cute. Oh my god, it's my highest level Pokemon. You kidding? I queened out so hard when I found out about the existence of Sylveon. I was just like, I must get an Eevee now. And I seriously spent like 3 hours outside of those places in the brushes going, I really don't want to kill any more of these floating sword things. Give me an Eevee.
It's a Pokemon, that's just a fucking sword.
I know! Thank you! Oh, the key ring one?
Oh, we need to not do this right now.
Yeah, okay. We're not even talking about the arcades
Yes.
anymore. It's just us bitching about Pokemon. Just talking about key ring, really, people?
I know.
Do you want to play games with the like 5 minutes we have left?
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Play some games.
We have games.
I'm gonna say bye.
Bye, Internet. I hope you had fun. Are we posting?
Also, bees.
What's up? Are we posting this? Like, are we
Yeah.
posting?
Yeah.
I don't know.